If you are representing a country whose name is the United States of America, and you're going to say, listen, guys, we've changed. We're nice people now. We don't want to do this anymore. Let's just kind of kick it and let's have a good relationship together and let's do this. Say you change. Say we change to go to a libertarian philosophy. I see the only way that works if everybody is joining that camp. China's going to say, good for you guys. Go ahead. Russia's going to say, okay, awesome, nice people. Your current system means in about 4 to 8 years, new guy's going to take over what you're doing right now, and he's going to go back to whatever was in the past before.
This dystopian future is happening now. Well, you're acting like this is some future. The Chinese right now are dominating us in places like Africa and Southeast Asia because we are wasting our time fighting wars in Afghanistan.
They love it. Here's the thing.
It's today, man.
Well, let me just say, okay, there's two errors here that you can control for, right? And I think you're focusing on one and not the other, and the other is more the reality of the situation right now.
In this debate, Dave Smith schools Patrick Bet-David over U.S. intervention, breaking down how America's foreign policy has basically been a non-stop disaster, draining resources, fueling endless wars, and just making everything worse. Patrick Bet-David tries to push back and acts like pulling out of conflicts would make the U.S. weak somehow. But honestly, his arguments just fall apart the longer the debate goes on. Larry Sharpe and Spike Cohen jump in too, pointing out how the military-industrial complex keeps these wars going, while China just sits back and gains power without doing a thing. Patrick Bet-David keeps trying to hold his ground, but Dave Smith just picks apart his whole argument piece by piece. So make sure to watch till the end to see how Dave Smith just schools Patrick Bet-David over the US's intervention.
So you can make the argument that if we kind of back off, that's less of a disincentive for other people to take over because they don't think we're going to be as forceful as strong. What's actually going on more in reality right now is that we are provoking a lot of these other countries into some of their actions. I mean, look, we expanded NATO all the way up to the Russian border, and then we're shipping in money, weapons and money, and also we're instrumental in a Ukrainian coup in 2014, all before Vladimir Putin ended up invading. I don't think the lesson here is necessarily that, if we back off, he's going to invade. We also might provoke him by going further. And I think this could be happening. Okay, fine. So
and
there's
Finland
also
today said that they were considering joining NATO.
Right.
So it's like
this
that's
is,
on
now
board.
Now things are escalating higher and higher rather than what we want, which is to de-escalate the situation. Yeah. Okay. So on top of that, look, do you honestly think, let's think about this. Does Vladimir Putin or does China, do they want us out of Afghanistan or in Afghanistan for another 20 years?
They want us in.
They want us in for another 20 years. They are not looking at what we've done with this empire and saying, oh, great, they bankrupted themselves and destroyed their culture. Maybe we could be next on that. I think they'd rather wait. China's been going around and investing with countries while we've been occupying them militarily. We have made the hugest blunder strategically in the 21st century of handing the 21st century to China. Yep. We need to stop doing that. What we should be doing is saying, yes, we're going to pull back. We can trade with people, invest with them. We're going to have the freest economy here we can have and be 100 times richer than China, and they're not something we're going to have to worry about. Yep. I'd much rather go in that direction than in the direction of, look, it's like this. Anytime, I understand you're saying that you're not advocating for us provoking them. You're talking about how do we make sure that we defend. But once you create this entrenched power, this is where it's going to go. You know, the old Cold Warriors back in the day, before the fall of the Soviet Union, guys like Bill Buckley, he used to say, I basically agree with libertarians, in theory. But look, we got the Soviet Union. So we have to have this big military-industrial complex. In his words, we needed a totalitarian bureaucracy within our own shores just to fight off the Soviet Union, to fight this Cold War. And then when the Soviet Union fell in 1991, they all went, great, military-industrial complex over. Now we can go back to being a normal country. Oh, no, of course they didn't. Then they went, we got to go see about Saddam Hussein. We got to go see about Kosovo. We got to go see, and just wars continued on and on and on, because once you have this entrenched government power, well, this is how they make money. Yep. This is how they expand their power. So it's not, I don't think you can have it perfectly down the middle, where we're this big, bad policeman of the world, but we only do good by everyone. It's too corrupting.
Dave Smith is absolutely on point here, and honestly, it's just a clear example of why the US intervention has been just such a disaster. Patrick Bet-David and others like to act as if stepping back would automatically just make the US look weak. But Dave just completely flips that argument on its head. I mean, instead of pulling back and letting rivals like China and Russia take over, it's pretty clear that America's constant meddling is just making things worse. Expanding NATO all the way to Russia's doorstep, and then funding conflicts like Ukraine's 2014 coup, it's not just defense, it's actual provocation at this point. And honestly, Dave lays out the biggest strategic failure of all here. While the US spends decades dumping money and lives into war, China's just sitting back, making deals, and just getting richer. America didn't outmaneuver China. We basically just handed them the 21st century. At the end of the day, this isn't about looking strong or weak. It's about whether the US is even willing to stop sabotaging itself.
Do you think there's a likelihood that we're going to have another Hitler?
No.
Are you saying in the States or in the world?
No. Worldwide, not in the States. Do you think there's a likelihood that there will be possibly another Hitler?
I think it's unlikely. I mean, it's not impossible. Look, I think you have three figures in the 20th century who kind of rise to that level of evil in Hitler, Stalin, and Mao.
Yeah.
And so the idea of having another one of them, I think that might be a type of unique evil that was somewhat unique to that time in this post-industrialized world, in the aftermath of World War I. I think it would be much harder to pull off today in a world where information travels so much quicker around the world. That doesn't mean it's impossible.
You know what is possible though? You clicking that like and subscribe button. So make sure to click them. It really helps the channel a ton.
And nuclear weapons too. Nuclear weapons also.
I do think it is likely. I want to say I think it is likely, and we have to look at what led to the Hitler and Stalin and Mao. Which, by the way, it wasn't them as individuals. If it hadn't been them, it would have been someone else. Okay, so in Hitler, we had the Weimar Republic, which did out of control spending. Also, the after effects of World War I. World War II is basically an extension of World War I. There was a 20-year truce that happened there. But in the meantime, you had the Allied countries that were just destroying Germany's economy. Germany's government was spending money out of control, and it led to the money being worth absolutely nothing. And that allowed a madman like Hitler to come in because he provided a stark contrast to what everyone else was saying, and that allowed that to happen.
And it was also our Federal Reserve. I mean, if you look at I think it was in 28, the Nazis, the Nazi Party, destroyed in the elections in Germany. Then they came back again in the special election. Was it in 30? I think I might have it's right around these years. And they came back and they took a bunch of power. This was how the Nazis got in power, and it was all because of the Great Depression, which was caused by our bubble bursting here that the Federal Reserve created. And then all of the debt got called in from Germany. It destroyed the German people, and of course, enforcing the Treaty of Versailles, as you said. Look, Woodrow Wilson in World War I said we have to make the world safe for democracy, right? Kind of this argument. We had despots in Europe, so we have to go there and overthrow them. And we overthrow that. You know, the kings and queens, the monarchs are all gone in Europe, in England in name only, but the monarchs are gone in England. And then in the aftermath of World War I, you got Adolf Hitler, Vladimir Lenin, and Joseph Stalin. And those monarchs looked pretty good at that point.
Okay, Patrick McDavid just really set himself up with that question about another Hitler. I mean, Dave Smith didn't just answer it, he turned it into a full-on history lesson. Instead of falling into the whole fear another dictator narrative, Dave just goes straight to the roots. Economic collapse, bad policies, and just power-hungry systems. He calls out stuff like the Treaty of Versailles and even the Federal Reserve's role in triggering the Great Depression, showing how those conditions created the environment for someone like Hitler to rise. Like, how do you even argue with that level of context? And then Spike Cohen jumps in to back it up, explaining how it's not just about individuals being evil, it's about the systems and the chaos that just let them take over. Honestly, PBD just doesn't stand a chance here. He throws out the idea, but Dave and Spike just completely outclass him with actual historical knowledge. Watching this, it's so clear why these interventional policies don't work on how bad leadership combined with bad systems can spiral out of control. It's not just a lesson in history, it's a warning.
Well, I want to bring up one quick point, though. I'm not against fighting. I'm a Marine. I'm not afraid of violence. I'm trained to be. Tons of my brothers and sisters have gone over there and lost arms and legs. But my worry is, why are my Marines leaving their legs in the streets of, I don't know, Kandahar or Baghdad? If I'm going to leave my legs in the streets of Manhattan, I'll fight for my city. I'll fight for my country. I'll fight for my nation. I'm not afraid of that. But why are we sending literally millions of men and women to go fight overseas, and when they come back, we treat them like garbage anyway, and then they don't even know why they died. They don't know why their lives are ruined. This is not the right answer, right? If they're gonna die, and I'm telling you, I know these people, they would lay their life down. And when I was a Marine, I would have ordered men to their death, or I would have gone to my death, because Ronald Reagan, who was my first commander-in-chief, would have told me to do so. Yeah. And many of them would do it. But why are we doing it in Afghanistan? Literally for nothing. in Iraq, literally for nothing.
The active duty military people vote and send more money to the most anti-war presidential candidate. Ron Paul got more money from active duty military members than every other Republican combined in 2008 and 2012. Donald Trump got far more support from the military than Hillary Clinton when he was taking a more dovish stance in 2016. The people who actually have to fight these wars are the ones who know what's up, and they don't want to do it.
Gary Johnson was popular with veterans too. Even Gary Johnson was.
He got something like double digits, right?
Yep.
I've been to almost all 50 states at this point in just the last 2-3 years, during the campaign and after the campaign, working on You Are the Power and growing that now. Doing that, I've met with people across the country. I would say that at any event that I do, anywhere from 20 to 40% of the people that come out are either active duty or veterans who are coming. What brought them into libertarianism was either me or someone else, Dave or Larry or Ron Paul or whomever else, telling them that we were against the wars of intervention. We were against the military-industrial complex. We were against the Veterans Administration it's not even single payer, government-run healthcare system that's completely destroying their health, the health that they were promised when they came back. That's what's bringing them to it. This system isn't working. It makes us less safe. It wastes a bunch of money. Countless scores of people are dying overseas. Many more are coming here and dying. Veterans people are going over. Active duty troops are going over there and dying. The ones that are fortunate enough to come home not in a flag draped casket, come home with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, all sorts of health problems. They're given the worst form of healthcare in this country, the Veterans Administration. 1 out of every 10 homeless people is homeless. 1 out of every 10 people in prison is a veteran. 1 out of every 10 homeless people is a veteran. 1 out of every 10 prisoners is a veteran. It's actually higher than that now. And this is as a direct result of this system. So when we're saying do something, yes, we should do something. And that something is looking at the root cause of what even caused a communist regime to be powerful in the first place and stop doing that.
And wrapping this whole thing up, Patrick Bet-David kept pushing the idea that pulling back somehow makes America weaker. But Dave Smith completely just broke that argument down, showing how America's intervention has just done way more harm than good. PBD had a fair point about global power shifts, but Dave Smith just made it clear. America isn't protecting itself. It's draining its resources and making things worse. One of the biggest points was Dave Smith calling out how even the military doesn't support these wars, with active duty troops backing anti-war candidates. Patrick Bet-David made some decent arguments about the risks of stepping back, but he never really explained how the intervention has actually helped. In the end, Dave Smith just had the stronger case. These wars aren't keeping America safe, they're dragging it down. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear them.